Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today we have a very interesting video. I know we had a lot of controversy and debate about the prior weapon tier list that I created. So obviously the prior weapon tier list was really based upon ranked pubs and tournament usage and trying to find a middle ground for every single weapon, trying to apply some logic to it. Well, today we're going to be doing a community voted weapon tier list. So based on all the polls, I literally have a second monitor. I'm going to show it up on screen, just a screenshot full of every single poll that you guys have ever done, voting for every single weapon. The rules we'll discuss in a moment, but we had over 120,000 votes, 3,153 likes, and over 1,612 comments. A lot of discussions, a lot of debates. This is really hard, so what I did is we're going to rank based on community poll ratings. We're also only going to rank the weapons based on their shared ammo types within the rank. So let's give an example right off the bat. The R301, the R99, G7, RE45 alternator are going to be compared within their same bracket to provide an S, A, B, and C tier. We're going to do our best not to double up on guns, but the unfortunate circumstance when you have multiple guns, especially like the P2020, we're going to see them double up at the bottom of the list and kind of rate accordingly. We're going to try to apply some logic best we can. So while we're going to obviously separate off the care package weapons, when it comes to weapons like the Peacekeeper, we're going to have to unfortunately rank them into shotguns. Otherwise, it won't make a whole lot of sense. Now, I know the feedback before was to provide skins on these weapons. I also saw comments saying, don't add skins on the weapons. So what I've done is we're not going to do skins, but every time we discuss every weapon that we're going to put on the screen here, what we're going to do is have very large text discussing what weapon we're talking about on screen. That's going to be the goal. And I'll be sure that it says longbow, it says R99, R301, so when you're watching the video, you see the large text and know what we're talking about. I will bring in the polling so we get a specific guide of what we're looking at in terms of that overall weapon. I am doing this all in one take. I just kind of wanted this to be very real. I've been thinking about this so much and all the analytics, so we're going to do our best to compile it. So now that we got the introduction out of the way, let's start with the very first one. And again, some of these are really going to hurt me specifically because I know some of my natural bias came into the prior list. So this is going to be a little difficult to put some of these weapons. Specifically, let's start with the longbow. I am a very big fan of the longbow, but unfortunately, based on the polling rate, it has been classified under the C ranking. Mostly because it is, well, the lowest of the tier. The triple take, sentinel, and charge rifle are obviously higher tiered. The reason I, in my prior video, ranked this a lot higher was that I love using it. I have a lot of experience in first-person shooters. I played games like Battlefield, and so using the longbow was definitely easy for me. But based on the community's feedback, this looks like it sits upon the C tier list. Now, the charge rifle was really close by as well, but the issue I have here to make sure it makes sense of the weapons, I also placed this on the C tier list. It was only a 3% difference between the charge rifle and the longbow. And to be fair, I don't really see these weapons utilized by casuals or anybody of the like. It's mostly pros. I know the charge rifle is very overpowered, and I know the longbow has a lot of potential, but it seems the overall player base does not utilize this weapon as much as they should. Now, when we move on to the next weapon, the next weapon is definitely more of a meme of the shotguns. So when we talk about shotguns, Mozambique is definitely the weakest compared to the other shotguns. So this belongs more or less in the C tier listing. I know you could put hammer points on it. It's a bit of a meme, but it doesn't do as well as other weapons based on their category. Especially whenever you're off drop, the last thing you probably want to grab is a charge rifle. I don't mind a longbow, but I understand the frustration of people picking that weapon up. Now, when we continue on with the C tier list here, we see the P2020. This one I did not put in the overall voting. A lot of people understood it when I went through the comments. It's just not a very good weapon. Sometimes people would even argue that having punching would be more effective than using the P2020. I know it's pretty good when you add hammer points to it, but you don't necessarily see this a whole lot in ranked tournament use. I mean, if you are, you're kind of memeing and kind of joking around, but nonetheless, it's understandable. I like the 30-30 repeater, but based on the polls that we saw from the community, this literally only had 3%. Nobody seems to like the 30-30 repeater. Every other heavy gun within its category is way higher ranked. And that's understandable. I get it. While it's definitely a gun that I like to utilize, and I've definitely got some crazy shots with it, I see why it definitely goes lower on the list. So I can agree with this one, and hopefully you guys agree as well. So as we continue to truck on, we double up on some of the light guns here. We have the RE45. The RE45, while it has more hop-ups and everything, was very, very low ranked, along with the G7, which we'll segue to in just a moment. The RE45, while it's not going to trump any gun based on the B, the A, or the S tier list. This is a gun that you want to get rid of as soon as possible. You want to opt to grab yourself an R301, an R99, or another gun. One that really surprised me, based on the polling, that I thought was going to go up higher, so this one hurts to put here, personally. Let me know, again, this is a big discussion topic. This is the community's result. So I want to know in the comments what you guys think of what the community thought about these guns. The G7 was rated on the same level as the RE45. That one kind of hurt. I'm not going to lie. I feel like the G7 is underrated. I love the G7 personally. I think it's an amazing gun, but I mean, I guess people can disagree on that one. And I'm just going to have to take that one the way it is. So I understand 3%. It ranks the same as the RE45. I saw people praising the Scout as underrated. I agree with you, but I guess this is where we're at overall, right? Now the next gun that is on the the C tier list is the L-Star. The L-Star definitely took an L when it comes to the polling. That was definitely the meme that we saw. It only was at 3%. Everyone voted for all the energy weapons, and I get it. You know, some of the comments mentioned before was a weapon tier list that I did that I was wrong on the L-Star usage. I agree that it's a C tier weapon. You know, I agree that it definitely belongs down here. It's unfortunate that I think it needs a bit of a buff, especially at range. It definitely up close is a monster. It's gonna do more damage output than the rest of the weapons here on this list. But here we are today, looking at the L-Star and the unfortunate circumstance of where it lives. So now, let's go over to the B tier list. So the Sentinel was higher ranked, but that seemed to be based on the community's feedback, realizing that this gun was really fun to use, was enjoying, was satisfying. I've seen it used in ranked. It is very satisfying. It's the only bolt action of the list, and so it's got a lot of potential there. It seems individuals loved using the Sentinel based on its ranking compared to the longbow and the charge rifle. It was just a more quote-unquote fun gun to use, but I think that's overall feel. I don't know if it's based on statistics, because statistically it does do a bit more damage. Nobody uses up the charging feature per se compared to, you know, in tournaments and ranked. Nobody uses waste cells like that. That's kind of odd. I mean, you can, there's nothing wrong with it, but I guess this is why it lives within the B tier. It's just a fun gun, so I guess fun kind of trumps overall usage, and that's why people pick it up. And I agree with that. Okay, let's move on. So the next weapon we're going to talk about is going to be the Devotion. The Devotion, as you can tell, is it's an overpowered weapon. I'm surprised that it lives in the B tier, but it makes sense. It's mouse 1, hold to win. With the turbocharger, it's extremely strong, but the polling was 1% higher on the Havoc. So it seems individuals like the Havoc more. I would personally grab a Havoc over the Devotion, but I understand the usage of the Devotion and just how strong it can be. So these are really interchangeable with the Havoc and Devotion, just because based on the polling rate, they were really, really close together. So that one's tough. So I mean, that one's going to be up for the comment section debate about A or B tier, Devotion or Havoc, and I feel like it's just going to be split down the middle. I don't think we're going to really have much of a solution on that one. Next up, this one I ranked higher before, but I understand. Let's drop it down. Let's put it down on the B tier list. Now, the reason why we drop it down to the B tier list is it very much operates like a Hemlock, where you need to have accuracy and shots to really land it. It's a great weapon. I personally love the Wingman. I ranked it at an A prior, but I get why it lives currently at a B. Because the Wingman is not as good as the Spitfire or the Flatline, according to statistics provided by the community. So because of that, this can't be an S tier weapon, it can't be an A tier weapon, it gets dropped down. So we keep segueing on, and let's talk about the Hemlock while we're actually here. This is a great segue. The Hemlock is at 11% overall in the poll rating. I think it's underrated. I think this is highly utilized and ranked. I think it should go up on the A tier list, but based on statistics, the Flatline and the Spitfire are just much more popular among the heavy weapons set. And that could be because of the hipfire change, but listen, when you snag some shots with this gun is really strong. You can drop somebody in an instant with the Hemlock. It's easy to use, it's overpowered, it's fun, but again, when we did the prior weapon tier list, if we apply the same logic as the Wingman and the Hemlock, I understand why they have to live within this bracket. I hope you guys do as well, based on the polling rate that we see above. Now, the care package weapons are really tricky. And I've seen this happen a lot of times, and I saw it in the comments a lot as well. And it's why we're gonna get some debate about this one. This one's gonna kind of sting. Is the Prowler living on B tier? A lot of people don't believe the Prowler should really live in the care package. I agree with that. Most of the time when you see an A or S tier weapon, most of the time most people just leave the Prowler straight up in the care package. Also, this was the weakest of all of the care package polling that we had. It's very apparent that everyone loved the Kraber or the Peacekeeper more. So with that and the ammo running out so quickly, I would like to move this up to an A. I think this should belong in A, but I don't want to have two care package weapons sharing on the S and the A tier list. I want them to kind of be separate, because the thing is that if you already have a Kraber and you already have a Peacekeeper, you may not even pick up the Prowler if you need the ammo, if you're going to pick up an R301, if you're going to have a Volt, if you're going to have a triple, I don't know. There's so many other weapons that individuals seem to leave compared to the Prowler. So this is why, honestly, even between these three heavy weapons, I can see somebody just saying, I don't want a Prowler, I'll stick with the Wingman. Oh, I don't want a Prowler, I'll stick with the Hemlock, or vice versa. And so that's why I'm leaving those interchangeable where they're at. Now, this one was a controversial one as well. Based on my prior weapon tier list, I dropped this down to a C, but it gets boosted up to a B, partly because I didn't want to throw 3 or 4 light weapon choices within the C ranking. So based on the ranking, this one was just slightly better than an RE45, with slightly better than a G7, and it seems that based on the comments that I saw, there was a lot of love for the alternator. I personally would drop it down to a C, but based on community rating and based on polling, I get it, it lives within a B ranking based on what the community thinks. Even if it's just by 1%, that's still based on all of the other guns, such as the RE45, the G7, and the P2020. I don't think, and this is my thoughts, and again, the community, okay, well, this is just kind of where it's going to have to live, is that I still think this belongs C. Let's just settle in with that. It's going to live in B because it's just better than all the other 3 weapons according to the polls. And I even asked for individuals to comment for the P2020, and it was mostly just you guys just roasting the P2020. So I put this at a B, and I guess we'll just kind of live with that. Now, this has been a big debate. We've seen a lot of pro players comment about the Mastiff as a whole, since the nerf is definitely not as good. So, with the logic of the Mastiff is better than pretty much all these other weapons at C tier. So I can't drop it down to C because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense logically. Is better than a Mozambique. I can't realistically put the Mastiff and the Mozambique on the same level. I know somebody put in the comment section saying that they deserve to be on the same level. I don't necessarily agree with that. There's no way in heck you're going to see anybody running around in a tournament and ranked. And trust me, the Mastiff still slaps. It still does really well. But I do see individuals trading out the Mastiff for, let's say, a Wingman, for maybe the Prowler, for the Hemlock, the Devotion. So I feel like it lives within this bracket under B tier, and based on the polling that we saw on screen. Now, let's talk about some of the A tier weapons. The first one that I have here is obviously the Flatline. This is the only one where I changed based on the polling, so I apologize for that. This one, the only reason I switched it is partly because of how much is used in tournaments and how much it frustrates people is a Spitfire. I know people love the Flatline, and it was at 37% compared to the Spitfire, and you can obviously know where the Spitfire is going to live. And perhaps because this polling was a few weeks ago, maybe it is because people just hadn't adjusted to the meta, but everyone knows just how strong the Spitfire is. I've seen it in APAC North, North America, and Europe, and just high usage overall. So this one is going to have to live within the A tier line, even though the community voted that it's, I mean, I guess, and put your imagination if you wanted to move it to S tier, if you wanted to move it to A tier. This one's hard. I get the polling, but at the same time, we have to understand logistically just how strong the Spitfire is in this current meta. With that, everyone seemed now to love the EVA 8 over the Mastiff. Based on polls, this was pretty overwhelming with the EVA 8 in terms of love and how strong it is. So EVA 8 is definitely a lot more powerful than it was. The buff has definitely helped. It's a lot more consistent of a weapon. I've definitely seen a ton in tournaments and ranked and even pubs, more than I ever have. So there's definitely a lot of love for this gun. So now when we move on to talking about the energy weapons, remember, I feel like the Devotion and the Havoc could be interchangeable, so you can use your imagination so you don't get too mad about its overall placement. Well, then you can move it up, down, however you want, but the Havoc, based on the ranking, was really close to the Devotion. I mean, it might as well almost been a tie. I saw it go back and forth, but I know the Havoc has definitely been utilized a bit more over the Devotion, but they're still both extremely strong and powerful. Now, the next one is the R99 sitting at A. Because this was the second most picked weapon, the R99 at 21%, definitely not as good as obviously the R301. This doesn't belong in the S tier category. And because there was a lot of pros mentioning that belongs in C tier, at the same time, I feel like if I dropped it down there, a lot of people are going to be very upset in the community based on its overall placement. It's definitely still a fan favorite. A lot of people still love the R99. It definitely still has its place. So it kind of lives currently under A tier just because based on weapon choices, it's literally the second most popular gun. So we're putting it up on A tier just because based on the polling that I've seen, and I don't want to just dumpster too hard on all the light weapons and just drop them all at the bottom. I don't think that makes sense logically, I guess. So now let's continue onwards. Let's talk about the S tier weapons. So this one was very easy to put at S tier, was the R301 with an overwhelming round of success in the polls. The R301 is definitely a fan favorite among pros, pubs, ranked, casuals, everybody far in between. R301 is very, very popular. There's not much to say among about this. It seemed like everyone was in agreement about it. Now, in terms of Kraber, we mentioned this one before, but on the care package is still S tier. I know you guys disagree with my placement having this on S tier. Whenever it slaps, it creates an opening. You should go back and watch the tournament for APAC North, but at the start, this weapon literally was a game changer in pro tournaments. And it's still a game changer in pubs. It's still a game changer in rank. This gun is extremely powerful. It's extremely popular, even based on its overall polling rate that we see from the fans. So this is going to live on S tier. You can comment down below and still disagree, but we did pollings. I agree with it. I've seen it in tournament just absolutely slap. I don't know what else to say about it. So because this is a sniper gun and not a care package gun, the triple take, I boosted up to S tier partly because it was overwhelming just how popular this gun was among fans. People don't even think that it's a sniper at all. Some people say that it's a shotgun. I mean, I agree with that. This gun is incredibly broken. It's really, really strong. It's used for long range. It's used for close range. It's used for mid range. It's got a multi-use. I mean, once it's got its choke there, I mean, even if you were to miss your shot long range, I mean, you have the spread that can potentially end an additional shot. It just does really, really well, and it's just as annoying as much as the Kraber, and it definitely has its place. I mean, you pick this up at the start. You can two-tap somebody if you land your shots, and because of the spread, you're gonna have some good luck there. Now, next up is the Volt. The Volt SMG was unparalleled on the polls for energy weapons. So, without a shadow of a doubt, and I've seen even in tournaments that I saw two people, I think it was Ras, who was on APAC North, was running literally 2 volts. Quite literally. He was running 2 volt SMGs. And I think that round, in a official tournament, slapped and had, I believe, 13 or 14 kills. So this deserves definitely to be on the S tier ranking. It's extremely powerful. I don't think a whole lot of you guys will disagree based on the pollings. It's a really, really strong gun and a really strong weapon. So now, next up that we need to talk about is the Spitfire. The Spitfire is extremely powerful and really, really strong, and there is no denying its presence overall. Just because, you know, it goes do 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 do. I mean, that's literally the meme. I know individuals were in the polls were saying that the flatline was more popular, but I've seen this utilized more in tournaments and pubs. I mean, you guys literally were killing it in the comments, just praising the Spitfire, which why it confused me why so many were using the flatline. So this one, the only reason I pushed a little higher was just how much people were frustrated and also praising the Spitfire as a whole. Now, the last one where I apologize, where I broke the rule, and I was thinking about this all last night, that if I drop the Peacekeeper down to A, it means I have to drop the EVA or have the Peacekeeper on the same line as the EVA. So with that logic, I had to move the Peacekeeper up to S tier. Partly, even though it was the second weapon among the care package, is still a very powerful gun, and the Peacekeeper is still very viable. It's still better than the Mastiff, definitely, especially when it comes to all attachments and it's kind of all there for you. And it's better than the EVA 8. Some people may disagree with that, but I think the Peacekeeper can be quite strong even at distance whenever you charge it up, to almost work as like a mid-range weapon in some ways, compared to the EVA 8 that will only slap for like 7 damage from a distance. So that's something to be very, very mindful of and aware of whenever you're rocking the EVA 8 and compare it to the shotgun. These two down here I utilize in the prior weapon tier list, just an FYI and a heads up that I utilize, partly because I compared both without a turbocharger and with a turbocharger, so I'm not doing that in this comparison here. I just kind of put on the overall bracket. This was really, really tough, and I put a lot of thought into this, and I utilized all your polls and all your information. I just did the best I could with all the information that was available, but I think that based on the polls, we're looking at where realistically all the weapons do sit. Hopefully you guys found this enjoyable. This is you guys, this is the community, based on where weapons sit. I may disagree with some of it, but this is based on the analytics and numbers that I see, based on the comments, and so I had to take all of that into consideration to try to put some weight, and based on what we have seen on tournament usage and pubs and ranked and so forth. So again, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you would like more videos like this. We can all your polls do matter in terms of content. They really, really do. So it means a whole lot that you guys are supportive. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.